Death of birth certificate.
For entertainment purposes only. But I got a question. Why is nobody talking about the death of the birth certificate? This is the birth certificate. You all know what it looked like. Right? They're no longer giving birth certificates. They're from now on only giving certificate of living births. This is what a certificate of living birth looks like. There's a big difference. All right? What's the difference? I'm going to tell you. I just had a baby back in July. I only have the certificate of living birth. They did not issue me a birth certificate, and they refused me a birth certificate, actually, when we was trying to get one. Why? And what's the difference? We're going to see right here. I'm going to shrink up so we can get a better... But look. Birth certificate, certificate of living birth. Yellow. Certificate of living birth. And the birth certificate. The birth certificate is the corporation that the state owns you. The certificate of living birth is your natural self, the sovereign being. Being that they're no longer giving birth certificates in New York State, which is a fact. You can go look it up any way you want to look it up. I don't care. I just had a baby. I don't have a birth certificate for him. I only have a certificate of living birth, and they're not giving me a birth certificate. So let's look into it, right? I'm going to go down to you are a beneficiary of sovereign public trust, right? Because we know about what the birth certificate is supposed to do, right? So let's go down here. Let's talk about it. So the certificate of living birth states that you are a beneficiary of a sovereign public trust. State is your public servant, trustee with a fiduciary duty to protect and serve you. Rightful beneficiary of your public trust. On the opposite side, if my child did receive a birth certificate, he would have been a state. He would have been under this classification. State is beneficiary of foreign trust, a foreign situs trust, right? State is holder of your estate. Hashtag all property used as surety for IMF debt obligation and is the beneficiary of your situs trust, right? Basically like property of the state, right? How do you know? Because you can keep going. Let's look down to born as holder. 5 lines up from the bottom. Born as holder of an estate, right? Now, if you have a birth certificate issued to you, this is them taking that. And you now become birthed as user of estate. Hashtag debitor. Born as holder of the estate is hashtag creditor. So being that your children are no longer being birthed with birth certificates, they are now creditors. They are creditors to these trusts. You feel me? This is a whole different era they're being born into. It's a whole different process they're being born into. And this is major, and this is something that we got to understand. I'm going to further shorten my image so we could read it more because it's about the information. So let's look at it. Let's look up title right here under the certificate of living birth in yellow. It says title, hashtag your given name. This is what you have. This is the first document that you're born with. You're given a given name, and then the doctors take it and your parents sign you over and they create the birth certificate, which creates you as a corporation. Hashtag trade name. Look right under, let's go back over to the yellow and look right under that. Rightful beneficiary of your trade name, which is you, yourself, the living blood human being. The birth certificate is an unwitting trustee of the trade name, meaning you know nothing about it. You're an unwitting trustee of this. Pay attention to what's going on. Please do your research. Please dig more into this, and you're going to see it all makes sense, right? All right, so let's look. So basically what it's saying is that sovereign public trust at the age of 18, you pick if you have a certificate of living birth, and that's all that they're giving you because that's all that they're giving you. So now they're creating a whole way for us to get back what we deserve, right? But they're not saying nothing about it. And that's the problem. Sovereign public trust. Look at this. Read it for yourself. I'm just trying to highlight certain things. At the age of 18, I'm reading in the yellow under sovereign public trust. This is what my child has. This is what your child is getting if he's born in New York. I definitely know that for sure. He's no longer getting a birth certificate. They're only giving out the yellow. the certificate of living birth. They're no longer giving out birth certificate, which is major. It's a major system that made a fallen that they're not saying nothing about. It's a freedom that was opened up that they're not saying nothing about, that they're keeping quiet about, but we catching on to it. Let's see it. Look, so it's saying right here, sovereign public trust. So my child falls under sovereign public trust. At the age of 18, you can become an executor of your estate as free man/woman in your sovereign trust, as the holder in due course in a permanent trust. You can now at any time claim legal title to your estate/property. But if he had a birth certificate, he would have fell under foreign suitis trust. A trust is formed by splitting your estate, created a legal title, #holder for the state, an equity title, user for you, as it is a temporary, not permanent trust. You only have possession, use, not legal title of it. So the state has legal title of it, and the state is using all of this that you have naturally, but because they signed that birth certificate and created a birth certificate, they took it, right? But now we have it back. And that's the whole point of this whole lecture, because they're no longer giving birth certificates. Which means we're no longer contracted to the state, and we're no longer property of the state. Look at what's highlighted under above, right? Let's come down on birth certificate to where it's circled in yellow. The birth certificate is a certificate of a bond with the World Bank as select of the trust, right? Look on the left. Under the yellow, which is a certificate of living birth, it says right on the left-hand side, this record is used as evidence for birth certificates. That certificate of bond is issued. So they're basically saying they're giving you your rights. They're giving us our rights back. They're giving us all this shit back, and they're not saying nothing about it. Look at an inhabitant and foreigner. If you have a certificate of living birth, you become an inhabitant, born on land with inheritance, jurisdiction, and under common law. Only under common law, which means what's common law? You should not infringe on the life, liberty, and property of another human being. That's the Most High's law. To not infringe on the life, liberty, and property of another human being. Anything else is free game. This is how this shit is played. But if you have that birth certificate, you fall under foreigner, an alien under commercial jurisdiction, and later also admiralty law of the state, which now you fall under the drinking and driving code, the commercial codes, the speed limit. You fall under all of this thing that's created to keep their employees of the state, their corporations, #trade names in line. So it's basically like, if you have the yellow, let's look at it like this. America is McDonald's, right? The purple, the birth certificate, is every stipulation that McDonald's have. This is America, right? The left-hand side is you being your own self. The left-hand side is you walking into McDonald's. You no longer fall under certain things because you don't work there. You're not a corporation. You're not a part of it. You know what I mean? Like, let's just look at it in certain terms and really just break it down. That's why I kept this up here, so you can break it down for yourself. Like, it all just is beautiful. We could keep getting into it if you want to get into it, but like, share, whatever, we could break this down. But the birth certificate is done. Birth certificate is done. That's for sure. And what done fell that they ain't let us know, bro. Let's get into it.